in the fourth Sunday of the Easter season. This is such a wonderful, wonderful time of year. I love that in the church's calendar, we fast for 40 days, but we feast for 50. The season of Easter doesn't end on Easter Sunday. We don't just get to Easter and celebrate the resurrection and then go on. We continue in the mode of the resurrection for 50 full days of feasting. We are in this season of rejoicing and gladness because our Lord is risen. It's not one day that we celebrate. It's 50 days. I think that comes out to 7 Sundays. On the fourth Sunday of the Easter season, the church always acknowledges the Good Shepherd. You'll notice over the years as you celebrate Easter that the same themes come up throughout these 50 days. The third Sunday is the road to Emmaus. The fourth Sunday is the Good Shepherd. There's a pattern to our teaching because we want to make sure that we understand the fullness of the reality of what it means to say Jesus is risen. And so we teach and worship in this way, patterning our lives after the life and ministry of Christ, so that we can fully live into what it means to be resurrection people. And so here we are, once again, another year has come, and here on the fourth Sunday of Easter, we read an account from the Gospels of Jesus proclaiming himself to be the Good Shepherd. I love Good Shepherd Sunday, but as many of you know, I have a complicated relationship with sheep. Some of you have heard my stories of being a shepherd. No one's laughing, so maybe this bunch hasn't heard my stories of being a shepherd. But I'm a really bad shepherd. Like, I was a teenager, and I was employed by a farm as one who was to herd sheep. And let me tell you something, that is not easy work. It's hard work. And sheep are stupid. And they run away from you, and they're dumb, and they get into lakes, and they try to drown themselves. It's horrifying. I was once trying to catch a single sheep so that we could shear it. It was summertime. That sheep needed a haircut. He should have been happy about this. But he would not sit still for anything. We chased that sheep all over the pasture. And eventually that sheep ran into a lake. I'm not kidding. He ran into a lake that was there in the pasture for the sheep to drink out of, but he just ran into the lake and kept going. And I don't know if you know this or not, but sheep can't swim. And a fully wooled sheep is like a sponge, and it just soaks the water up. So this sheep is completely saturated with water and sinking like a stone. His little nose is sticking up out of the water. And I was like, good. One less sheep I have to chase. The shepherd, the Good Shepherd, the one who owned the sheep, the one who had a stake in the sheep, jumped in the lake and rescued the sheep, and then we took that sheep and sheared him. I have a complicated relationship with sheep. I think it's really hard to love sheep. And so it's really interesting that Jesus uses all this pastoral imagery to talk about his own role in our lives as a shepherd, which, of course, I know my own life well enough to know I'm about as stubborn and strong-willed and stupid as the sheep I was chasing that day in that pasture. And so thank God that Jesus is willing to come and jump in a lake and pull me out. And I'm sure that many of you could say the same. Amen? We're like, amen. Jesus is the Good Shepherd. It's such a almost trite way of thinking about things these days. We just, y'all might have a better handle on it than someone like me who's more of a city person. I didn't really grow up on a farm. I went to work on a farm, but my mom grew up on a farm. She grew up on a farm, and she has a much different relationship with these kind of stories than I do. And I'm sure many of you who grew up and maybe still work farms have maybe a deeper understanding of what some of these pastoral images mean. I have to kind of look things up when I'm trying to understand what it means to say that Jesus is a shepherd. Here in the Gospel of John, the first 10 verses that we read today, Jesus is describing himself as a shepherd and also as a gate. He says, I'm the gate for the sheep. And that one kind of threw me for a loop. I was like, so is he a person or is he a door? What's going on? Well, it turns out, and many of you may know this already, that shepherds, especially in the olden times, would very frequently sleep in the entryway to the sheep pen, to the sheepfold. There would not necessarily be an actual wooden gate, but rather the shepherd himself would lie down in the entryway to the sheepfold and be there sleeping and on guard at the same time. He would sleep in that position, in that place, so that the sheep couldn't get out and get into trouble, and so that predators couldn't get in and hurt the sheep. So when Jesus talks about being the shepherd and the gate, he's talking about being one of these shepherds who is very conscientious and very good at what he does. He actually lays down in front of the doorway, in front of the entryway, to take care of the sheep. Jesus is this good shepherd, and he says his sheep know his voice, and they'll follow him because they know and recognize his voice, and they trust him. And I got to thinking about that, and I wondered to myself, how often do we find ourselves following the wrong voice, choosing the wrong shepherd? Jesus says at the very beginning of the reading that we shared this morning that the only true shepherd is the one who comes in by the gate. If someone comes in over the fence, if someone climbs the wall, if someone gets in a different way, they're not really a shepherd. They're there with evil intentions to kill, to steal, to destroy. And I wonder sometimes if we have in our lives mistaken those who have climbed into the sheepfold by other ways as true shepherds. And so I have a question for us to think about together this morning. And that question is very simple. Who is your shepherd? Who is your shepherd? Who is my shepherd? Who are we following? What voices are we paying attention to? What desires and ways of living are we following? What paths are we choosing? Who is the shepherd of our souls? You know, there are lots of wannabe shepherds in the world today. There are lots of wannabe shepherds that are going to be calling out. And the question for us is, are we going to hear those voices and follow them? Are we going to wait to hear the true voice, or the voice of the true shepherd, and follow Jesus? There are lots of shepherds available to us. There's the shepherd of things. The shepherd of things is that voice that calls to us and says, you know what you need to really be secure in your life is some stuff. One more thing is what it will take to finally make you feel safe, secure, and happy. The shepherd of things says, if you'll just buy one more, whatever it is for any of us, if you'll just buy one more, you'll be happy, you'll be safe, you'll be secure. The shepherd of things leads us down this path of continuing to need more and more and more stuff so that we can feel complete. Now, I'm not opposed to stuff. I like stuff. Like, I really like my stuff. Like, my stuff is the best stuff. It's good stuff. You know, I have things I like to collect. I collect books. I collect watches. And I really enjoy these collections. They're fun to find pieces. They're fun to handle and to enjoy. And I think having things that we enjoy is not bad. The problem creeps into our hearts is when we find ourselves seeking to fill a void inside us with one more thing. Right? So it's not the things themselves that are bad. It's not even the getting the things or collecting the things. It's when that void inside us calls out for more and more, and we keep shoving stuff in it, and it's never, ever full because it's bottomless. The shepherd of things calls out to us in that all too familiar voice in our Western consumerist culture, saying, just get one more thing. One more season of the Kardashians is all you need to feel safe and secure and complete. one more tchotchke for your shelf, one more book in your collection, the next cell phone, the newest car. That's what it's going to take to make you feel safe, secure, and complete. The shepherd of things calls out to us and says, all you need is stuff. And you'll feel complete. You'll feel safe. You'll feel secure. Now, we all know what an extreme case of things looks like. When the shepherd of things has fully led you down the path that the shepherd of things wants you to take, you end up on a TV show called Hoarders. Has anyone ever seen that show? We know what that looks like, right? And we can all kind of say, okay, that person has a problem, right? We've all watched that show and really felt pretty superior, right? I know I have. But the truth of the matter is that is just the extreme example of what the shepherd of things does for each of us in our own life. Whenever we begin to sacrifice what we know to be right and true, we've begun to listen to the shepherd of things. We've begun to sacrifice our principles about how we're going to consume because it makes us feel so good to have stuff. We've begun to follow the shepherd of things. When we buy into the idea that one more of the newest, best, and brightest is what it will take to make us feel like a whole person, we have sacrificed our souls on the altar of stuff. We have begun to listen to and follow the shepherd of things. The shepherd of things whispers in our ear, if you will just buy that thing that really, really is so shiny, it's so pretty, it's so new. If you'll just buy that, it'll be the last thing you ever need because you'll finally feel good. That's the voice of the shepherd of things. Now, maybe we don't always listen to the shepherd of things. Maybe we're able to resist that urge to consume and to hoard and to keep things for ourselves and to always have more and more of the best and shiniest and brightest and newest stuff. But perhaps we succumb to the shepherd of knowledge. Now, the shepherd of knowledge, that's a seductive shepherd. The shepherd of knowledge says, you can control your destiny and fate if you just know the right stuff. You can control what's going to happen to you in life if you just know what's going on. If you have the right knowledge, then you can beat the system and make it through life unscathed. Oh, the shepherd of knowledge is very, very seductive. The shepherd of knowledge takes all sorts of different forms in the way it calls to us. One of the ways the shepherd of knowledge calls to us is through this horrible abomination called the 24-hour news cycle. Is anyone involved in the 24-hour news cycle? None of you? I see. Okay, you're throwing her under the bus, Willie. All right. We have one person being fessed up for. Gary fesses up. Okay. So none of you all watch CNN or Fox News? None of you? Okay, some honesty is breaking out. Okay. The shepherd of knowledge comes to us in the voice of information. If you just get the right information, you're going to be able to see what's coming next and avoid the pitfalls of life. I used to work in the news business, or as my boss called it, the gossip trade. And we were peddling knowledge. One of the ways we sold our paper was to say, here's all the things that are going on that you need to know today. The 24-hour news cycle, I was in a newspaper, the 24-hour news cycle amplifies that and said, here's all the things you need to know in this 10 minutes, because 10 minutes from now, something else is going to happen. You're going to need to know that too. Okay, we didn't get too many takers on the shepherd of knowledge in the form of the news. What about a little thing called Facebook? Okay, we have a few. Everyone's like, we have a few takers on Facebook. If I just know what all my friends are up to, then it'll be okay. I'll feel better about it because I'll know what's going on. That Facebook shepherd, the shepherd of knowledge in the form of Facebook, boy, it calls out to you, doesn't it? it calls out and says, hey, you need to know what your cousin in Peru is doing right now. And if you don't know that, the world's going to fall apart. Sometimes the shepherd of knowledge comes to us in the guise of education. I'm overeducated. I've got all these degrees. Gary, you've got a bunch of degrees. We know what's up, don't we? We're so knowledgeable. But at the end of the day, if we trust in that knowledge to save us, we're only allowing ourselves to be duped by the shepherd of knowledge. Now, I'm not opposed to news. I'm a little opposed to Facebook, but I'm not really opposed to Facebook. I'm not opposed to education. These are all good things. Keeping up with your family and friends is a good thing. Knowing what's going on in the world is a good thing. Having knowledge that comes from education and learning is a good thing. But when we rely on these things to be our Savior, we're putting our trust in something that will ultimately let us down. Because if I know anything, I'll tell you a great example. Here's a great example. How many of you know that you're supposed to eat a bran muffin? Okay, didn't they change that though? Now you're not supposed to eat a bran muffin. Are we back to eating bran muffins? Are carbs good for you or bad for you? Right? It changes all the time. The ground shifts under our feet. And if we put all our trust in the shepherd of knowledge, we'll find ourselves being led not by still waters, but by raging waters of what in the world's going on? What's happening next? I can't even keep up with it anymore. The shepherd of knowledge doesn't lead us into peace. The shepherd of knowledge, if we put all our trust in knowledge, will lead us to a place of chaos. Anything but peace. Then there's the shepherd of passion. Now this one, the shepherd of passion. Oh, passion is a very, very, very seductive shepherd. Passion is, it's good. I'm passionate about a lot of things. I'm passionate about my work as a minister. I'm very passionate about the church. I'm passionate about the work of the church in the world, and especially reaching out to those who are hurting in various ways. I'm passionate about justice. I'm passionate about the gospel of Jesus Christ being spread out and bringing the message of liberation to people that are held in bondage by all sorts of things. I'm passionate about that. I'm passionate about my relationship with my wife. I love my wife, and I'm passionate about the relationship that we have together. I'm passionate about my friendships. I love and cherish the deep and dear friendships that I have. Sure, many of you could tell similar stories. I'm sure you're passionate about your marital relationships. I hope so. You're passionate about your friendships. Perhaps you're passionate about an issue. Maybe there's something that's going on in the world that is just your thing, and you're going to tell everyone in the world about what your thing is and how important it is for the good of all humanity. Is anyone passionate? Okay, if you folk are passionate, okay. And passion is a good thing, but the problem with the shepherd of passion, when we put all our trust in the shepherd of passion and let the shepherd of passion lead us exclusively, is our passions can become twisted and misguided. Romantic passion is a beautiful thing. Romantic passion about a beloved spouse is a wonderful, wonderful thing. But romantic passion that becomes misguided very quickly can turn into something nasty like obsession or lust. Twisted passion leads us into unhealthy places, makes us do things that are harmful to ourselves and to others. Romantic passion out of joint leads us to a very, very dark place, and there's no comfort there. Passion for justice and freedom is a good thing. I would hope we all have passion about justice for all. But social justice, passion for social justice, when it's twisted and out of joint, can lead us to unrighteous indignation, to anger, to even wrath. It can lead us to a place where we are always angry at everything all the time, and outrage is the rule of the day. Is anyone outraged today about anything? I ran out of outrage a few a few elections ago. But you see it. If you spend very much time on social media or even on the news at all, you see passion out of joint turned into outrage, anger, to the point where we can't even see and acknowledge the humanity of those who don't share our point of view. Anyone ever experienced that? I think we all probably have on some level. Passion out of joint, a life that is given over to the shepherd of passion. When we allow passion to lead us, it leads us into anger, lust, obsession. It leads us to places that we ought not to go, places that are dangerous for us and can lead to all sorts of horrible, twisted, out-of-joint behaviors. The thing is, all of these shepherds lead us into isolation. The shepherd of things prioritizes our stuff over our relationships with God and others. And so when we finally get to the end of the path with the shepherd of things, we find ourselves surrounded with all sorts of stuff. If you've seen an episode of Hoarders, you've seen this, literally people walled in by their possessions, alone in isolation. The shepherd of knowledge can lead us also into isolation when we alone have all the answers and we alone know how things are supposed to work and how things should operate in the world. We become isolated. The only person worth listening to is ourselves when we have all the knowledge, right? The shepherd of passion leads us into isolation because when our passion is out of joint, we can no longer engage in authentic relationships with one another. Our relationships become tools toward a different end. The shepherds of this world lead us into places that keep us alone, that keep us hungry, that keep us thirsty. Unlike the good shepherd who leads us together in paths of righteousness beside still waters and through green pastures, the shepherds of this world, the shepherd of knowledge, the shepherd of things, the shepherd of passion, will lead us into places where we will have to be alone and where there will never be enough to sustain us. The shepherds of this world are not good shepherds. The difference when we follow the good shepherd is that we are led to community, to contentment, to care for others. The good shepherd leads us into places where we can be authentically with one another, in community together, where we can truly care for one another, and where we can find true contentment with what the Lord has provided us. Isolation, chaos, those are the destinations of the shepherds of this world. But contentment, care, and community are the destinations that the Good Shepherd leads us toward. We see a great example of that in the Acts reading this morning. They continued in the apostles' teaching, in the breaking of bread, and of the prayers. And they had all things in common. And whenever one had need, they sold what they had in common and gave to each in the community as they had need. The character of the early church was evangelical and apostolic. It was sacramental and liturgical. And it was communal and based around fellowship. The early church was characterized by its worship, its common prayer together, its teaching, the apostles' teaching of the truth of the risen Messiah, its prayer, its teaching, its breaking of bread, its sacrament, and its fellowship with one another. That is a community that is gathered around and guided by and following the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd leads us to a place where we can together as a community experience true contentment, true peace, true comfort. all the other shepherds are bent on three things: stealing from us, stealing our joy, stealing our power, stealing our contentment and our peace, killing us, usually by degrees, with just one piece of horrible news, one bad purchase, one destroyed relationship after another. And they destroy us. The shepherds of this world seek to steal from us, to kill our joy and our relationships with one another, and to destroy everything that's good about our lives. Jesus, the Good Shepherd, offers us a new way of living. What does life look like when we're following the Good Shepherd? Jesus is my shepherd. I want for nothing. He makes me to lie down in green pastures and leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil because He's with me, and His rod and His staff comfort me. He's preparing a table before me, even in the presence of my mortal enemies. He's anointing my head with oil, and my cup is running over. And surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell with Him, with my Lord, with the Good Shepherd, in His house forevermore. That's life with the Good Shepherd. The other shepherds, the shepherd of things, the shepherd of knowledge, the shepherd of passion, they're going to lead you places that are not good for you. They're going to lead you to places of darkness and death and destruction. But the Good Shepherd will lead you home to eternal life, abundant life, life overflowing greater than anything you can imagine. That's where the Good Shepherd wants to lead us. And my question for all of us this morning is, will you follow? Who is your shepherd? Who is your shepherd? Speak.